The internet was wrong. The rumors? Manufactured. The headlines? Misleading. While fans were dreaming of Larry Bird walking into Indiana Fever's locker room to save the day, the real story was happening quietly, behind closed doors. And it wasn't just surprising, it was strategic, ruthless, and absolutely brilliant.
Do that.
Yeah, I think for us, it all starts defensively. It's how aggressive we are at the point. It's from the jump of the game. And honestly, going kind of back to your question, I think that we were pretty soft in the first half defensively and even in the third quarter. And we kind of went on a run in the fourth. It's because our defense stepped up and we took away their action. We followed the scout. And so for us, it's just making sure that we're knowing player personnel, that we're following our scout, that we're working as a unit. We're not on islands. And I think the last 3 games, we've done a pretty good job. And you know what? Sometimes you have to win ugly, but at least we won.
This isn't a fairy tale story, it's a blueprint. A calculated master plan by a franchise that no longer wants to be a feel-good underdog. They want a dynasty. And firing Christie Sides, that wasn't an emotional reaction. That was stage 2 of something much, much bigger. It all started with the perfect distraction, the Larry Bird rumors. You couldn't scroll on TikTok or YouTube without seeing thumbnails of breaking news or so-called secret meetings between Bird, Caitlin Clark, and even Sophie Cunningham. Millions of views, millions of believers, but no real source, no confirmation, just smoke. And while everyone else was chasing ghosts, the Indiana Fever front office stayed quiet, calm, focused, because they weren't hiring a ghost from the past. They were building a future. They let the fantasy spread, because it gave them the perfect cover. Then came the move that truly signaled something deeper. In October 2024, Christie Sides was fired. On paper, that move didn't make sense. Under her leadership, Caitlin Clark had a stellar rookie year. The Fever made their first playoff appearance since 2016. That's progress, right? But the Fever weren't aiming for progress. They were aiming for power. And the second they drafted Caitlin Clark, everything changed. This wasn't about rebuilding anymore. It was about accelerating, winning, capturing lightning in a bottle before it slipped away. Let's talk about what Caitlin Clark brought to this team. 170% viewership increase. 18 of her first 21 games cracked over 1 million viewers. She wasn't just a rookie, she was the most important marketing and basketball asset the franchise had ever seen. That kind of spotlight changes the job description. The head coach position was no longer just about drawing up plays. It was about managing global attention, navigating locker room dynamics, building culture, and winning under pressure. That's why Christie Sides wasn't the long-term answer. Enter Stephanie White. You want a real move. You want a masterstroke. Stephanie White is it. Not because she's a legend, but because she's done it before. With this exact team. In her very first season as head coach in 2015, she led the Indiana Fever all the way to the WNBA Finals. So while Christie Sides brought Indiana back to the playoffs, Stephanie White took them to the brink of glory. And now, she's back, not to rebuild, but to finish the job. This wasn't just a coaching change. This was a statement, a message sent loud and clear from the front office to every player, every fan, and every future opponent. Playoffs aren't the goal anymore. They're the starting line. Firing Sides, even after a historic rookie season from Clark and a long-awaited return to postseason basketball, wasn't about disrespect. It was about raising the bar. Because the Fever didn't just want to ride the wave Caitlin Clark created, they wanted to steer it toward a championship. And for that, they knew they needed someone who's already walked that path in Indiana colors. Stephanie White isn't here for feel-good stories. She's here for banners. This wasn't just a no-one pick. This was a seismic shift. The Indiana Fever didn't just select Caitlin Clark, they launched themselves into a new stratosphere of relevance. Clark arrived as a once-in-a-generation talent, the face of a movement, and a media magnet with more gravitational pull than any rookie in league history. Her presence ignited a nationwide conversation. She didn't walk into the WNBA quietly, she kicked the door down. Every game she played turned into a national event. Viewership surged by over 170%. Road games sold out. Her jerseys flew off the shelves. And suddenly, the Indiana Fever, a team that hadn't sniffed the playoffs since 2016, became must-watch TV. But all that visibility came at a cost. With the spotlight came scrutiny. And with superstardom came pressure. The front office knew this wasn't going to be a normal rookie year. This was going to be a firestorm, and they needed to brace for it. Here's where the Fever's true foresight began to unfold. They didn't rip the foundation out from under Caitlin Clark. They didn't bring in a celebrity coach or panic hire based on hype. They stayed the course with Christie Sides, but not because she was the long-term answer. She was the transition, a bridge coach. Her assignment was clear: guide Caitlin Clark through the chaos of year one, build trust, manage the whirlwind, keep the locker room steady as media pressure and fan expectations exploded overnight. Under Sides, Clark found her rhythm. She broke records. She led all rookies in points, assists, and three-pointers. And most importantly, the Fever made the playoffs for the first time in nearly a decade. That wasn't a coincidence. That was the strategic value of continuity. Sides did her job. She completed her mission. And once the chapter was closed, the Fever turned the page. Now the gloves come off. Now the real race begins. The moment Caitlin Clark proved she could thrive in the WNBA's intense spotlight, the front office executed the final phase of their plan. Hire a coach built for championships. And that's exactly what Stephanie White is. Forget the internet rumors. Forget the noise about Larry Bird. The Fever weren't chasing nostalgia. They were hunting hardware. White's resume speaks volumes. She coached the Fever to the WNBA Finals in her first season as head coach back in 2015. She knows what pressure looks like. She stood at center court under the brightest lights. And more than that, she understands the unique culture of this franchise. She's worn the jersey. She knows what it means to represent Indiana. This wasn't just a coaching hire. This was a chess move. The kind of move you make when good enough isn't good enough anymore. Let's take a step back and look at the full picture. What we're seeing isn't reactionary. It's methodical. The Fever drafted the biggest star the league has seen in years. They let her develop under a steady hand, shielded from instability. Then, once she found her footing and proved she belonged, they upgraded, not for comfort, but for championships. Each move flowed into the next. Clark brought the flash, Sides brought the calm, and now, White brings the fire. This is how dynasties are born, not in chaos, but in calculated evolution. This is no longer about rebuilding, no longer about hoping. The Indiana Fever are signaling to the rest of the league, we're done surviving, it's time to start dominating. Clark has her sea legs, the roster is solidifying, and now, with Stephanie White at the helm, the goal isn't just to compete, it's to conquer. That's Stephanie White, a coach who knows the finals, a coach who already earned respect in that locker room, a coach who doesn't have to learn the job, she just has to finish it. She's no longer running with training wheels, no longer figuring it out on the fly. Now, she has a leader in her corner who won't flinch when the pressure mounts. Someone who's not learning alongside her, but leading her through the fire. Stephanie White has been there. She knows what it takes to reach the WNBA Finals. She's felt the weight of a franchise on her back, and she carried it with poise. For Clark, this isn't about slow growth anymore. This is acceleration. This is momentum. This is what happens when a generational player finally gets matched with a coach who speaks the language of championships. Someone who doesn't just believe in the vision, but knows how to deliver it. This isn't mentorship. It's alignment. A superstar and a seasoned finalist, locked in on the same mission, not to survive the spotlight, but to own it. Now, the training wheels are off. The bar is raised. The Caitlin Clark era just entered phase 2, and the Indiana Fever are officially in win-now mode. So what do you think? Is Stephanie White the coach who can turn Caitlin Clark's Fever into a dynasty? Drop your take in the comments. We want to hear from the real analysts out there. And if you appreciate analysis that cuts through the noise and delivers the real story, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because while everyone else is chasing rumors, we're here chasing the truth.